Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Black heart, black mind, black end. Listen, hit that share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So here's this message. We've been saying that sisters really screwed up hypergamy to a certain extent. And I thought that kind of was the case. I mean, I used to say, no, I mean, my experience, sisters were hypergamous, but that's because in my case they were. But that's also because they were demanding more of me in exchange for less, for reasons that I've, been able to pinpoint, reasons that have been explained to me. And I remembered, as I've told you all, in 2017, but they were explained in 2001. And actually, it was hinted at to me in 1991. But at that point, it was still kind of new, and I wasn't sure that the theory was correct. And so, in my case, I've experienced the same hypergamy that other men have experienced. Or at least I thought I was. But let me point something out to you right quick. Sisters actually do practice hypergamy. Some would say, wait, if that's the case, why is it that they're accomplished and got degrees and their own resources and they're dating these hobosexuals, sleeping on their couch, playing video games while she's at work and using her car to go screw somebody else? Here's why. I'll tell you why. What is it that's most important to Korean and Chinese society? It's social status and wealth. What other people say about you and how much you have. If other people approve of you and you're making a good bit of money, a nice salary, then you got it made as far as they're concerned. Okay, you see? So if a man is well paid and he's popular, he has options. Now, of course, a woman needs to be pretty young and have the right attitude. But the man has to be popular or approved of by other people, respected by other people, that helps too, and have some resources. Okay, you get it? All right, that's what we're looking at. That's what's needed amongst them. If you look at, now let's take people around the world whose identities, histories, and languages have not necessarily been popularized amongst other people. I.e., let's take Ethiopian. Now, we all know Ethiopian where it is, but most of you don't even know the name of the country's official language. It's not Ethiopian. That's not the name of the language. So the language, the official language is not popularized among many people. So now factor in other languages that are not the official language that are spoken as well. Okay. Take Ethiopian history. We know very little about it. We know about Haile Selassie, but we don't know much about it. Let's just be honest, we don't. So, you take Ethiopia and its history and its language, its distinctions, let's say. You go there as a non-Ethiopian, you're Pan-African, you're pro-black, you start to learn the language and become pretty good at it, and then learn their history. You have now excelled past some of them in what makes them distinct as a people. Add to that, I'm sure you're going to have a cute, neat accent when you speak their language. Guess what, gentlemen? You now have become a prize. You understand? That's real. This happens because that's important to them. You've excelled past them and shot up more than what they've expected. You've at least exceeded their expectations of you as a foreigner, meaning a foreigner. There you go. Now you have a higher chance of being able to marry or date if that's what you're into. Okay, now let's move on. Same thing in Southeast Asia. Everybody knows what Malaysia is, but see, people don't learn much of their language and much about their history. You go to that country. You start to learn their history and their language and exceed the expectations they would have of you knowing these things. And guess what? Now your chances go up. Do you understand? because that's something that's important to them. And of course, being financially successful helps as well too. But let's say if you're in the middle and you have these things going for you, these are pluses. What I'm getting at is that when you excel past these ladies' expectations at the very least, certainly when you excel past their station in what's important to them, you are seen as a catch as long as she individually likes you as well. You're a catch, right? What's important to Western black people? What is it? Now, of course, I'm talking about Western black folks in generally English-speaking nations. And I'm going to throw Suriname in there as well, because even though English is a second or third language there, Kaiju, one of my subscribers, shout out to the brother, has informed me that Hybristophilia from which sisters suffer is big, it's big stuff even there in Suriname, among the sisters. Stop and think about that. So what I'm getting at is that you take Jamaica, a yard, right? And she wants Badman and Rude Boy. She just has a different accent with which she says it. That's it. The guy that's got bodies, If he doesn't make a lot of money, but he's got bodies, that's cool too. What about take the UK, same thing. That's what she's looking for. It's the thug. That's because violence is important, and we know in America, in the hood, it's important from a young age. A man's capacity for violence means so much. And so because of that, sisters are looking at men hybristophilically, but these are the same things that mean that later on you get felonies and records and difficulty finding a job and fewer resources. See, when you have resources because you are a thinking and responsible, and you're not stereotypically aggressive, meaning you're not aggressive unprovoked, she knows that you got these things you got in life because you're not unnecessarily aggressive. She knows that. She understands it. So even though she may like those things in general, in her mind, getting these things from you is like getting them from another woman. You understand? Why does she sexually choose hybristophilically? Because hybrist, meaning violence, is what's important. So she is hypogamous when it comes to these other things because the sister is still practicing hypergamy regarding that which is important to her, and that's violence and aggression. Now do you get it? So we should understand this. We can talk to them and discuss with them the way you can talk to them and discuss with them their hypergamy and their hypogamy however you want to. But it helps you if you understand for yourself that in actuality, they're still hypergamous. They're just hypergamous with respect to violence because that's what's important. In China, they're hypergamous with respect to social standing and finance because that's what's important to the women there. In nations like, let's say, Ethiopia or Malaysia, or general nations whose, even if they're known, nations whose languages and histories are not popularized among other cultures internationally, then their distinctions as a people are also important, along with, of course, your financial success and, everything else, the things you already know. But keep this in mind, your history, or her history and her distinctions, are also important to her, and you exceed her expectations, let alone exceed her objective knowledge of these things. And my goodness, well, we already know what's with Boom Quisha, Boom Shika, and Sapphire. Whether she's Canadian, British, or from one of the English-speaking Caribbean nations, at least one of the ratchet ones. We already know. We already understand what's important there. Kaiju has dealt with this. Dwight Hayes, He's dealt with this. Shout out to him. Many others of you have dealt with this to a certain extent. What is important is that for which they are, and right now, let's be honest, to sisters, not only violence, but violence and image are very much so important. These are very important to them. A man's complexion is important to them. Simply put, you need to be more negatively stereotypical according to the stereotypes of white folks, because that's what's important to her. That right there tells you that what really, at a subconscious level, what the white man thinks about you is very important to her. And it is important to her that that white man does not think highly of you. Now, you could take that for revolutionary reasons and say, okay, great, but they don't want to, we already know. Sisters want you to be revolutionary, but they don't want to be revolutionary. They don't want to take revolutionary risk. Nobody really wants to. I mean, they're uncomfortable. You wind up living like Malcolm. But, and I get that nobody wants to. That's why it's called a revolution and it's called a sacrifice. But what I'm saying is that in their case, they insist you take on all the revolutionary risks, but they don't even understand what revolution is. They're still back to square one. Violence is important. And therefore, they judge you based on violence and other negative stereotypes. And so the other things in life by which, financial and material success are measured in any culture, including in ours, in our culture carry a stigma because it means you weren't revolutionary enough. But if they were really, truly revolutionaries, I'd somewhat understand it, but they're not. They're playing it. Or they're just rather holding you to revolutionary standards that they're not willing to meet. Angry Man, shout out to him. He's done a good job of explaining this before. They want you to storm the fortresses and bastions of white supremacy with the little pistols you have and get yourselves killed in the process of trying to kill them. And then hopefully either we win, but we die, and she gets to inherit Miss Ann's station, or we die and they win, but she thinks that for whatever reason, Master Charlie's going to leave her alone. That's what it is. They want to reward violence at the end of the day. Yet the funny thing is that if we were really about to do something like that, they would do one or two things. You look, and most of them are going to do one or two things. If you really start planning to get even with white folks physically, they're going to do one or two things. Rat you out to protect Massa, or always goad you to do more so that you go into the realm of being stupid and getting caught by Massa. Never would they do anything that would help you to actually carry it out, escape, and get away with it. That they don't do, because they know then they're going to have to hide you places. And that's another talk for another day, but you understand now. Don't think that they're not practicing any hypergamy. It's not that. They're just practicing it with regards to that which is the most important to them, which is the violence and the rest of the negativity. And I'm not just talking about the so-called ratchets either. Oh no, the 92s are some of the last ones to ever outgrow that. As I've said before, I used to think this not hypergamy. Everybody else practices that, but them, no. They're practicing it just with regard to that. See, they practice it, but only in ways that are the most inconvenient to you. And this here is another reason why you must leave the West. If, of course, you're going to raise any chillins that are worth raising, that are worth anything as adults. You must bounce. And if you get to certain parts of the motherland and they still have that Hybristophilia, talking that crazy stuff like, I want a man that's killed a lion, and that's an exaggeration. I'm just using that as an exaggeration. But you start, if you go somewhere and you start finding that dumb stuff, You start hearing them say crazy stuff like that over there, or, I want a man that beats up on other men, things like that. If you start dealing with that, you lead them too. Even don't think that just because they from back home, they're automatically holy. The motherland is diverse. The best and the worst and everything in between are going to be found there within a 3-country area. You'll find it because the cultures change. So just understand it's a good place to start. Just realize that you got to learn the different areas and learn what's what and where. But it's going to doggone sure beat the West. Because we already know. Canadian Sapphire. Hey, look, that's Aisha Curry. She's a Canadian Sapphire. Yeah. So thanks for listening. I appreciate that. I hope I explained it very well. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual, non-violent or non-violent for no reason male power just because they don't like it.